Well, in a matter of days, the world may hear what fired FBI Director James Comey has to say about his private conversations with President Trump. Comey is scheduled to testify before a Senate committee on Thursday as part of the investigation into the Trump campaign's team and its alleged ties with Russia. But the White House could block the move. The latest from CNN's Michelle Kaczynski.
The White House not ruling out that President Trump could invoke executive privilege and try to stop James Comey, the FBI director he fired, from telling his side of the story.
The president will make that decision.
Comey, now scheduled to appear before the Senate Intelligence Committee Thursday morning, is expected to talk about one-on-one conversations he had with President Trump while Comey's office was investigating Trump associates' contacts with Russia. Conversations that Comey kept notes on, and in which, sources tell CNN, Trump asked him for his loyalty and may have tried to persuade him to drop the investigation against fired National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, all of which the White House has denied. But a claim of executive privilege could be undermined by the president's own words.
I said, if it's possible, would you let me know? Am I under investigation? He said, you are not under investigation.
Those public comments could be enough to tank any claim that the content of the talks should be kept private. A source close to Comey tells CNN he was disturbed by what the president said to him and felt Trump didn't understand it was inappropriate. Put all together with Trump's later firing of Comey, many believe it could amount to obstruction of justice.
When I decided to just do it, I said to myself, I said, you know, this Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story.
Questions remain, too, over why Trump advisor and son-in-law Jared Kushner secretly met with a Russian banker and former spy at an undisclosed location, allegedly to try to establish a secret channel of communication with the Kremlin before the inauguration. The bank maintains Sergei Gorkov was meeting with Kushner as a businessman. The White House says it was part of Kushner's work on the Trump transition. It has since emerged that Kushner also had multiple undisclosed contacts with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak. The White House initially said one meeting was just a courtesy visit, but sources now explain they were discussing possible collaboration between the U.S. and Russia in Syria. Former senior State Department official Dan Fried tells CNN he and former colleagues were worried when the Trump administration, post-inauguration, started working on a plan to potentially lift sanctions against Russia that were imposed for taking over Crimea, as well as hacking in the U.S. election, which disturbed him enough to reach out to lawmakers to try to stop it.
Lifting sanctions without the Russians doing anything as a free gift strikes me now as a bad idea. My colleagues were concerned about this, and so was I at the time.
Putin himself denied there were any secret agreements with the Trump team.
No, there were no agreements. They didn't even get near it. They didn't even manage to start any kind of talks.
Well, as we wait to hear if the White House will try and block James Comey's testimony, the Russian probe goes on in Congress. Let's check in now with CNN White House correspondent Athena Jones. Athena, President Trump could use executive privilege to stop the former FBI director from testifying. Just explain how that works and the likelihood of that happening.
Hi, Lynda. Well, that's really the key here. The president could try to use executive privilege to block the former FBI director from testifying, but it's not entirely clear, number one, that he's going to do so or that he would be effective in doing so, that it would work. White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer was asked about this during yesterday's briefing, and he didn't have much of an answer. He said that the hearing was just announced in recent days and that it has to be reviewed. He said he hadn't yet spoken with White House counsel and doesn't know yet how the administration is going to respond. We heard similar from White House counselor Kellyanne Conway, who said the president is going to make that decision. Now, there's some reporting out there indicating that the president is not likely to try to use executive privilege. But if he does, there are some big questions that go along with all of this, which is if he does try to use executive privilege, it might give the message that the White House is trying to hide something something about these conversations. The other aspect of this is whether he could successfully use it, considering the fact that the president himself has tweeted about and talked about some of his conversations with the former FBI director. He's even hinted on Twitter or suggested that there might be recordings of those conversations. And so experts say that the president can't use executive privilege as a sword on one hand in one context and as a shield in another context. So that is really the big question mark as we look ahead to this testimony from the FBI director. Will the White House try to stop it? And if they try to stop it, for instance, by going to a federal court to try to get a court order, would they be successful? That kind of move would be unprecedented, and it just isn't tested. It's certainly not a guaranteed recipe for success if they're trying to block his testimony. Lynda?
Right. And Athena, there are also conflicting stories emerging about Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner and his ties to a Russian banker.
There are, and this is another key question for investigators who want to get to the bottom of this. As we heard in Michelle Kaczynski's piece, we know that Jared Kushner met with this Russian banker, Sergei Gorkov, in December during the transition. The White House says that he was acting in his role as a member of the transition, trying to set up a relationship with Gorkov going forward. But the bank has said that they were meeting with him in his role as part of Kushner Companies, so that it was more of a business meeting. Not to mention the fact that this meeting was originally left off. Kushner left it off, the documents that he prepared in order to get his security clearance. So there are a lot of questions around this, not a lot of answers. The White House referring all questions about this to outside counsel.
Certainly intriguing developments. Athena Jones, good to have you with us as always. Thank you.
Thanks.